The chef's job is to make sure you enjoy the food. Their job is not to help you adhere to your calorie deficit.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast that brings you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. Sustainable fitness transformation is all about the long-term journey. So there's one key thing that's part of living a true fitness lifestyle that I think we cannot ignore. And I'm actually surprised what are we, episode 43, I think now? And we're only getting to this now, but I think we've alluded to it so many times over the course of the podcast this year. So I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you dined out or went out to eat at a restaurant?
Last Friday, we had our stepmother's birthday. So I went out with Tara and then our step siblings and our dad and our stepmom out for it was shareable tapas styles type food. And then the weekend before that is funny. It was actually my birthday, delayed birthday celebration. Well, many weeks delayed, I guess, to another shareables Greek restaurant. So kind of back to back. Interesting experiences. So that was the last two times I ate meals out. And then in terms of outside of home cooked meal, I guess somebody else made it for me. I actually went to Tara's parents' place and we had some ethnic food with very yummy stuff. So those are my kind of three most recent
meals out,
I guess, eating out of my typical context situations.
And many people don't know this right now because you've kind of kept it hush hush, except for you've posted a couple photos recently on Instagram that might have been the reveal. Is you are in a fat loss phase right now?
I am. So I tried to run a secret fat loss phase, but then Tara noticed my face was getting leaner, and then I obviously posted some pictures on Instagram. People are you doing a show or what's going on? Because I got pretty lean pretty fast, I would say, which is great.
What did you say? You accidentally got lean or something?
Yeah, accidentally got shredded.
Yeah.
But no, it's jokes. Nothing's by accident in my life. But I would say, so it's been cool, though, because this is what I tried to do this time is the reason why I didn't tell anybody is because I wanted my behaviors and habits to be as if I were not in a fat loss phase. So for example, going out to dinner, which we're going to talk a lot about today, which I'm really excited to talk about. I wanted nobody to know, right? Usually you're oh, I'm fat loss. Maybe we don't want to go out. I was I'm not going to limit any experiences. I want to do what, if somebody wants to do that or if we're celebrating something, I'm going to participate and just figure out a way to work around it using the tools that are in my toolbox.
So essentially your lived experience right now is purposely trying to prove that you don't have to, yes, you need strategies, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, but you don't have to completely switch up how you actually live your life when you shift from one phase to the next, even if that is something like a fat loss phase, which does take diligence and does take a little bit of intention and planning and isn't always as easy maybe as other goals that we have in our fitness journeys. But your lived experience right now is actually almost like a hypothesis and a test to be is this possible? And you just said, yeah, 100% it is. And I mean, we've seen it with you, but we also see it with a lot of our clients too, right?
And that's the thing, because we want to be in amazing shape while enjoying our life. That's the holy grail, is to walk around, be super confident, be in amazing shape, and then also have the experiences we want to experience. Because everything is also just more fun when you're in good shape and confident. But I think people really think that they have to choose between, hey, I'm getting in great shape and maintaining great shape, or I'm living my life. And I think, as you said, we're trying to be a testament to that, and our clients are obviously a testament. That doesn't have to be like that. But you do, caveat, you do need the strategies and tools and mindsets that we're going to share with you in this podcast.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't expect them to both happen immediately. You can't be all right, I'm going to live my life and be shredded. It's no, you actually do need to invest in developing the skills to be able to have the strategies to do both. It's very possible. It's 1000% possible, but you can't expect it without putting in some of the work. Right?
No. Yeah. You have to think about it. I've been doing this for how long, right? By this point, it's not my first rodeo, and that's the only reason why I've been able to do what I've done in this fat loss phase right now. And I think you need somebody else just to show you how it's done type thing too, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to help you at least focus that when you do put your effort in, you put it in the right direction, you put it towards the right strategies so that you can eventually unlock that goal of having both, achieving your fitness goals, maintaining your physique goals, and also enjoying a sustainable lifestyle and those moments with the people in your life, or foodie experiences and things like that.
Awesome.
Okay, so if it wasn't clear enough already, today we are answering the question, can you eat out and still lose fat? So, of course, this conversation would look a little bit different if we're talking about maintenance goals, or if we're talking about like muscle building goals. But today, I think because fat loss is the most complicated when it comes to dining out, that's where we're going to focus. But a lot of these strategies still apply no matter what phase you're in, just to reflect a certain degree of conscientiousness and intention around your fitness nutrition. So these will carry over, but we're going to focus on the fat loss lens today because that's where they kind of have the highest potential value and reward.
Yep. I like it.
Let's dive into why it's actually so tricky though. Like, why are we having this conversation to begin with? And, why do people who go out to restaurants actually find it harder to achieve their fat loss goals or uphold their fat loss intentions?
I think the biggest one is the accuracy issue when you go out, especially if you're newer to tracking. If you're going from, okay, I can measure everything at home very precisely, to then going and the chef hands you a plate and you're like, well, how do heck do I account for this into my numbers?
Right.
I think that's the main thing, is like that accuracy kind of questioning that you might have. That's
and the
number one.
accuracy is important because if you are trying to uphold a calorie deficit, if you listen to this podcast regularly, we're going to sound like a broken record. To lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to be in a calorie deficit. And that's where accuracy does matter, because it allows you to know, hey, am I eating in a calorie deficit? Is my calorie intake matching what I need to support that deficit? And so the second you remove that accuracy component and increase the level of like guesswork, then you might not necessarily be accounting for all of the calories in a meal, or you might just not be so sure about the calories in that meal, or where they're coming from, or what ingredients are used in what proportions. And so that is the immediate complexity when it comes to fat loss and dining out. And even if you aren't tracking your food, it's still a factor, right? It doesn't matter necessarily what you log, but the accuracy or the less certainty of what you're eating does play a role.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. It's like your body doesn't know what you put into your app. Your body knows what you put into your body, into your mouth,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Into your mouth.
Yeah.
I think that also the thing is like there's a lot of, as you said, hidden calories, right? With like sauces, oils, butters. So you might say, oh, broccoli, and input broccoli, but in reality it's cooked with like 150 calories of butter. And then you're like, oh, steak, and you input steak, but there's like 100 calories of oil in that steak. And then you're like, oh, a potato, but like it's has more oil. So now all of a sudden your input is like 450 calories less than what you thought it was. And that's where I think those hidden calories sneak in, and we have to be very careful and mindful when we're eating out.
And a lot of times your calorie deficit, or a recommended calorie deficit level, typically starts around 500 calories. So let's say now you're like, okay, 500 calorie deficit, but now you didn't account for 450 to 500 calories of food. Like, there's your deficit gone, right? Which, we're not trying to say this as like, oh my God, red flag alert. It's just more like you need to be aware of this if you are trying to maintain a calorie deficit. One thing that I always remember when I go to restaurants that helps me maybe become more aware of the fact that there are hidden calories, and a lot of it is like fat sources, right? Because they're not visible. Like fat sources aren't visible, like cooking oils, like you said, butters, things like that. It's a lot harder to recognize. But we have to remember that the chef's job is to make sure you enjoy the food. And enjoyment, like fats are one of the main triggers of food satisfaction.
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you imagine having a steak that was like dry cooked versus a steak cooked in butter, and the difference in the flavor? Right? So when the job of the restaurant is to make the food taste good, their job is not to help you adhere to your calorie deficit. So we do need to just be aware of that. And again, there's nothing wrong with them putting butter in the food. It's just like we need to be mindful, and we need to recognize that as a potential difference maker if you have a fat loss goal.
100%.
I think, related to that also is like the portion sizes aren't customized to you. So even if you, let's say, eat the same foods at home, they might you could cook your steak at home in butter and still totally, enjoy it and be in a calorie deficit, but maybe they use more than you're used to, or maybe they actually use a smaller portion of steak to veggie ratios, so you're not as full after, and then you eat something again after you dine out. There's all these different things that we need to consider, but really it comes down to like the portion sizes, the recognition of the portion sizes, the recognition of the ingredients. All of those things become harder to allow you to be accurate with understanding your nutrition and calorie intake.
Yes. And then sometimes when people are in these scenarios, like let's say the chef gives you 40% more food than you would have eaten for dinner if you were at home. there's that also finishing your plate type thing where you're focusing on maybe conversation and the social atmosphere and different things like that, and you're like, oh, I just ate the whole thing, and wow, now I'm like really stuffed, right? So
That's a
sometimes we're a little
great
bit
point.
distracted eating as well,
That's a great
or
point.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, or just the visual cues. Like maybe you haven't, your fullness and appetite cues haven't necessarily caught up to like the level of what you're eating on the plate, right? So that's such a good point. That's such a good point, especially when we live in North America and portion sizes tend to be a bit larger.
especially if you live in the United States. My
Mm-hmm.
goodness, some of the
Yep.
portion sizes there are
Wild.
insane. And
Wild.
whether or not that's also one of the reasons why there's a big obesity issue there, it's one of the factors for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You started to talk about like, a lot of times maybe when you're out to eat, I
Mhm.
actually would really give kudos to anyone who like takes themselves out to eat because I think that's just an awesome thing to do, like go on a date with yourself. But most of the time, we are there with other people because it's an inherently social experience. And you talked about how you can maybe be distracted eating if you're talking to other people. But I think there is another component of being out to eat that is highly psychological, but related to the social environment.
Mm.
And some of that is like a little bit of a social pressure. And that's not to say that like the people in our lives are like trying to sabotage us. No, not at all. But it is that pressure of like, oh, this person just ordered a drink. Oh, I'm going to follow suit. Or you know what, they want to have dessert. They asked me to share. I'm going to just say yes. Right? Like those little things about the role of the people around you and how you might even subconsciously like adapt your choices or accommodate their choices when you're in that environment, like in a way that you might not when you're at home.
Totally true. And I think we were talking about this when we guest featured on a recent podcast with
Mm-hmm.
Mel. We were saying sometimes we do things just to make other people happy or so that they don't say anything. Like, for example, maybe when I'm at home, maybe I wouldn't have had a beer or something. Well, I barely drink, but you get it as an
Yeah.
example, right? Like,
Yeah.
I,
Or
um,
maybe you're not gonna like have dessert every night when you're eating at home, or even on a Friday night, you're like, I'm good, I finished dinner. Dessert isn't on the menu, so I'm not gonna have it, right?
exactly. But then maybe when I'm out, my friend's like, "Oh, you're so boring. Why don't you have dessert?" And because I don't want to hear that, not that my friends say that because they're all actually in pretty good shape and would never give me judgment for any choices. But like maybe I don't want them to say that, the people I'm with. So then I'm going to order dessert just so I don't have to hear it.
Mm-hmm,
You know
mm-hmm.
what I mean? So sometimes we make decisions just so that we don't have to have any sort of awkward
Yeah,
conversations or anything
interactions.
like or interactions when we're out with people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is like psychological more than anything. We're not trying to like point fingers at your friends or your family or the
No.
people you're out with, not at all. But it is a psychological adjustment like we make on our own. And there is one other psychological adjustment I do want to talk
Hmm.
about before we dive into practical strategies to
Yeah.
help you. Because I know right now it feels like we're just like outlining the challenge, right? But don't worry, we're going to get into the practical strategies too. The other psychological challenge, though, is when we go out, and I think I'm guilty of this. I've totally done this before because when we dine out, it's this feeling of treating yourself or a little bit of indulgence that comes with it, or like, you know what, this isn't my routine, so I'm going to make the most of it. And then we
Yes.
feel a little bit of psychological pressure to do everything in our power to absorb the full capacity of what that restaurant experience might have to
That's a good point.
offer.
That's a good point.
And so sometimes it's a little bit of like, sometimes it's the treat yourself mindset, but sometimes it's also like, I want to get what I'm paying for. And so you kind of splurge a little bit more or go all in, or maybe maybe you have two items on the menu that are priced the same way, but one of them is like a lobster mac and cheese. And you're like, whew. And the other one is like a chicken club sandwich and they're priced the same. You're like, obviously I'm going for the lobster mac, right? So that feeling of indulgence that might come with
That's a
dining
good
out.
point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, actually, Court. I think also we tend to kind of like our vacation podcast I talked about. We
Mm.
almost like glorify the meals out, and that kind of feeds into the wanting to overindulge mindset. It's like we're so excited to be eating out, which is great. It's like it's awesome. We need to enjoy our times out, but we get maybe carried away, and we're like, okay, I'm only going out once this week. Like have to just get after it at
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
dinner, right?
yeah. And I do want to say, like, you and I were just talking off air before we started about a really, really powerful mindset switch to help
Hmm.
you manage that indulgence and still feel like you have those moments in your life to splurge because we all deserve it. Like,
Yeah.
YOLO, right? Like we only live once. But also not necessarily do it all the time or start to
Hmm.
mitigate how frequently it is. So I'm going to save that, but I'm going to say tune until the end because we're
Okay.
definitely going to
Yeah.
share that mindset tip because I think it's a nice takeaway. But before we get there, we do want to talk everyone through some practical strategies.
Yes.
I think it's kind of clear that dining out can be a challenge to losing
Hmm.
fat. fat loss, weight loss goals. And that is really because all the challenges we just outlined. And it comes down to making it harder to adhere to a calorie deficit, making it harder to make intentional, informed, and accurate decisions to sustain a calorie deficit, right? That's where the challenge comes from. But there are ways, if you have a fat loss goal, there are very practical strategies that you can deploy to help you actually keep on track with your calorie deficit. And it does take some effort. It does take some effort, take some planning, take some diligence. It might even take some trade-offs, but it's possible.
Yeah. It's a give and take with everything, right?
Always
Like
a give and take.
if you want the crazy progress, crazy transformation, and also, have these moments, then you do have to put in the work. I'm sorry, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to
But
understand
it's
the
worth it.
trade-offs.
It's
It's
worth it, right? Because
100% worth
at
it.
the end of the day, you have both. Like, yes, you
Yeah,
have to put in the work, but
that's
it's
both
so
worlds.
rewarding because you get both outcomes. You get your
Oh,
fitness
yeah,
goals and you also get those experiences.
exactly. So maybe let's talk about in like timeline, as I think you wanted to, in terms of like, okay, so let's say Courtney's like, all right, Paris, like we're going out, we're taking mom out for dinner when I'm home from BC, and she says this like, okay, 2 days before.
Mom, if
What
you're
am I?
listening, spoiler
We should
alert, we're
definitely
taking you
take you
out.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 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 let's say she tells me that, right? Now immediately triggers, okay, meal out of typical context, like beep boop boop,
Parris's
like
robot
compute,
mode kicks
right?
in.
Robot mode kicks in.
Algorithm starts
Like
calculating.
it's like that's kind of how my brain works. That's why it's funny. So it's like, what's the first step? The first step is, all right, Courtney, like, where are we going? Okay. Maybe she says, oh, we're going for these amazing poke bowls. I'm like, okay, right on. I love poke. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the menu, right? And I'm going to try to choose an option that I want. And that's a mixture of ones that I think are going to hit my numbers the easiest, mixture of that with what I enjoy. I think that's the first thing. Like looking ahead, some restaurants will have photos. Even better if they have nutrition facts for more kind of like chain restaurants. Those ones tend to be more accurate. Like Subway is the same thing every time. Other chain restaurants maybe aren't as accurate. Like maybe like shawarma plates, like they're going to be less accurate and stuff than like a Subway or like a wrap or something. But a lot of restaurants will have kind of the macros outlined as like a starting point. But second best would be if they have photos so you can eyeball it. And third best would just be, you can kind of anticipate what the
Yes.
meal is going to be like. Go ahead.
No matter what, there will be information available to you on the menu items, right? So I'm going to walk through those three tiers that you outlined. I actually think that was perfectly put in terms of like, okay, there's 3 ways we can actually start to pick a choice on the menu and make an informed choice. Because remember, you said the number one issue is like an accuracy challenge. So in order to start to course correct that accuracy challenge, we need information, right? We need to make an informed decision. Like the closest to accurate would be actually having the available nutrition facts, right? So that is like the macronutrient breakdown, the calorie content, that sort of thing. Pro tip right here. If you go to Google and type in the restaurant you're going to plus nutrition facts or plus nutrition guide, most places will have that publicly available if they are a chain or a franchise. And this ranges from what you said, like Subway. McDonald's has like a calculator where you can like even like remove sauces and things like that and see it all play out. Not to say we should all go eat at McDonald's, but that's what I was gonna say, right. It's not a recommendation, but I'm just saying like chains will have those resources available to you. But even places like The Keg and Milestones and Earl's, they have, because they are franchises with multiple locations, there are certain standardized items. So you can find that information. So that would be the closest you can get. And it just takes a little Google search to get you there. One example I'm just going to say is like I had some women over for book club on Tuesday night, and it's like our tradition. Everybody else who's hosted has like ordered Panago pizza. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. Guess what? Panago's nutrition guide has their breakdown online too, per slice or whatever. It's up to you though to equip yourself with the information. So that was tier number 1 that you said. Anything else you want to say on that before I dive into your tier number 2?
No, I think it's just like knowing that they're not perfect, but we'll get into how to make it more accurate later. But those aren't going to be perfect, but it's a great starting point for our conversation.
It's a great starting point because then at least, and in case it wasn't clear, I want to outline what the value of that actually is, right? If you know these are the nutrition facts. If you're somebody who's tracking your food, great. You put that directly into your app as a placeholder and you then know, okay, this is what I'm planning to consume at this meal of the day. You build the rest of your day around it.
Yes.
If you are
Say
not
that again.
okay, say that again. All right. If you have the nutrition facts available to you and you are tracking your food, pop those facts directly into your food tracking app before you even get to the restaurant so
Yeah.
that
Even the day
you,
before, night
the day
before,
before,
budget for it. Yeah.
budget for it. Yeah, which is kind of our big takeaway here, but it's like pop it into your app and plan the rest of your day around it. So I call this anchor meals. Okay. I call this anchor meals. In that day, you're saying, okay, this dining out this day is the anchor that I'm going to build the rest of my day around. And you go in with that mindset and you go in with that strategy. And when the nutrition facts are readily available for you, it's easier than ever.
Yeah.
Such little work involved, except for that
Yeah.
small Google search, picking an item on the menu and popping it
Putting
in.
it in. Perfect.
I do want to say, if you are not tracking your food, though, there is still value in checking those nutrition facts because you would
Yes.
be so surprised. And again,
Yeah.
the goal is making an informed choice. And if you are on a fat loss journey or a weight loss journey, calorie moderation is important to achieve the calorie deficit. Okay, so do not rely on your internal bias of like, oh, this is a salad, or there's no carbs in this. It's got to be low cal. You'd be surprised. One of the biggest shockers I ever had was when I finally checked the nutrition facts on something and the chicken lettuce wraps, which you would think would be protein and nothing else,
Yeah. Yeah.
had like 90 grams of carbs in them because of the sauce,
Oh,
and it was one of the highest calorie appetizers on the menu.
jeez. Crazy.
So you, even if you are not tracking your food, you might be surprised, and it does
Just for
help guide you
awareness.
towards
Yeah.
awareness, and it can help you guide towards the calorie conscious choices.
Nice.
Okay, tier 2 you talked about was like photos, right? So let's say you don't have nutrition facts available. Parris, how would you use photos then? Because those can either be on the menu, but something I've actually done is I've actually sometimes gone to like a restaurant's Google
Instagram
review
page or
page,
even,
or
oh,
or
yeah. Oh,
Instagram
yeah.
page. Yeah. But like even when you look at Google's, people upload like their food pics along with their reviews or something like that. You can start to get a sense of what's there. Or yeah, like you said, their Instagram is a great place to check for pics. So what do you do with those pictures that then helps you plan ahead?
Yeah. So personally, just because again, not my first rodeo, I can eyeball it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see like what's on there and try to input each individual thing. So let's say it's a poke bowl. I'm like, all right, that looks like about this much tuna. Looks like about like this much rice, and then like each individual thing, and then I just put it in as a placeholder again. We're going to talk about some strategies with AI in a second that can also be helpful in advance or on the spot when
Mm-hmm.
eating meals out. Which so we'll leave it for then. But yeah, if like ideally you want to develop that eye of like, okay, looking at the visuals, if they don't have nutrition facts, they just have a photo, look at the visuals, try your best to eyeball the quantities based on your nutritional knowledge and put it in the same way as you would if you had the exact facts.
Yeah, I love that. And again, if you are not somebody who's done this before, or this is kind of new, or you're building this skill, don't put the pressure on yourself to be completely accurate with this portion sizes. That part is actually tricky. It is tricky,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you can start with is actually breaking down the components of that meal. Like what ingredients are actually in there, right? And when you see it visually, it makes it, again, we talked about there's hidden stuff like cooking oils or whatever. But when you see it visually, at least you have the foundations of like a poke bowl, right? Like I'm going to go with your example. All right, I can see the rice, I can see the tuna. Oh, there's edamame on there too. That's cool. Or hey, there's some cucumber. Great. Right? Actually visualizing the components can at least give you a starting point of what you need to account for, and then you can maybe fill in the gaps with, okay, do I think this is cooked in cooking oil? Poke bowl, probably not because it's like raw. But
Yeah.
maybe there's a sauce on top, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's spicy mayo. Cool. I need to make sure I account for that. Things
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly. And that's where you would input it as each individual food item.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the first one, Courtney said you have the macro, so you could input, like for example, on Chronometer, which most of our clients use to track, you just type in quick add, comma, protein, quick add,
Mm-hmm.
comma, fats, quick add, comma, carbohydrates, versus like what we just described, it would be like white rice cooked this much or
Yeah,
sushi
yeah,
rice cooked. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Good point, Paris. That's a good distinction for people who are in the tracking apps. So the third one you said is like maybe you don't have nutrition facts, you don't have photos, or you haven't found a photo of the dish that you want. But so this could be more of those like independent restaurants, which obviously are kind of sometimes the most rewarding ones too, because they're the most unique or the most local or things like that. It doesn't mean that you don't have anything to go off of though, because Paris started this with like browse the menu. And I love what you said, Paris, about like finding the dishes that you think might support your goals and also be ones you enjoy. And I think like if you blend those two things, like create your short list of like, okay, these are the options on the menu that I'm leaning towards. And usually the menu lists ingredients. It might not say like cooked in butter, but it will say like, okay, let's go back to the steak example, right? It'll be like steak or filet mignon or whatever. And then it'll be like, actually, sometimes steaks are good because they'll be like 8-ounce steak. And you're like, perfect, I know exactly the portion. But it might be like steak served with mashed potatoes and grilled broccolini, which
Mm-hmm.
freaking sounds delicious to me. But you take those ingredients that are listed on the menu and you start with each of them. And if it's something like mashed potatoes, you might have to be like, okay, what's typically in mashed potatoes? But sometimes those ingredients are readily available for you on
Mm-hmm.
the list. So that's your starting point.
Exactly. And you can just, based on, again, your awareness of what a typical plate of those foods tend to look like at a restaurant, you can take your best guess.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, what I'll tell you what I do is like, I will kind of just input what I think it's going to be, just like we said, like if I don't know what it's going to be and I know, okay, I'm having the steak and potatoes or whatever, I'll just guesstimate the amount of each individual ingredient. And then if I think there's going to be added butter or
Mm-hmm.
I'll just input like an extra 10, 15 grams of fat on top of it. Once you get really, really good at this, this is what I do. I literally just leave a certain amount of protein and calories for the meal, and then I eyeball it. If I think it's under what I allotted for, I'll just have a little snack when I get home. That's what I typically do now. So like that's where you want to eventually get to. We're talking about like different options and different like strategies, but eventually, like for these, for example, for the shared plates that I had when I went out, and for Tara's, family's cooking, like I have no idea like how to plan that ahead, right? I didn't even know what we were
Mm-hmm.
going to have.
Right.
But I allotted a certain amount of calories for those meals based on kind of what I would expect them to be, and a certain amount of protein for those meals. And then I just kind of ate to try to mentally clock that in my
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the hardest environment when you're in shared plates, right?
Yeah.
Or you have no
Yeah.
idea and they're like home cooked ethnic meals.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably like playing it on hard mode. But just so you know, you can get to that level where you're pretty confident in those situations, even. So if this all seems daunting to you and a lot of stuff, don't worry, because eventually you're going to have the skills.
I have to just say it here because that was so well said, Paris. But it's another reason why it's important not to actually shy away from these experiences. Like if you are in a
Mm-hmm.
fat loss phase, or if you're not actually, and using the time when you're not in a fat loss phase to practice, like
Yes,
don't shy away from dining out, because if you don't dine out, you don't build the skills. So give yourself those moments. And maybe it's actually easier to practice those skills when you're not in a fat loss phase and you're not looking for, maybe as much accuracy to accelerate your progress. But even if you are in a fat loss phase, like don't shy away from these experiences. It is worth the quote unquote trade-off of maybe one moment of less accuracy in the grand scheme of things to help you build that skill and to help you practice.
absolutely. Because it's kind of like learning how to swim, right? You got to, at some point, you got to take the water wings off and just jump in the pool and learn how to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. I love this. Oh, I could talk about this all day. So we're kind of talking about like planning ahead and how browsing the menus can really help you start to create your own budget. That's kind of the main takeaway is like start to budget for that meal and make it the center point of your day, because then okay, I'm going to guess this amount of calories and therefore the rest of my day I'm going to eat these foods and in these portions to get to manage my total daily intake. But there is one other thing before we move into the during portion of like what can you actually do when you're dining out. I think I want to talk about one thing that you say a lot. So I'm actually going to leave it to you, but it's like don't go in fill in the blanks.
Hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You want to
Yes.
expand on that one?
Yeah, like don't. Yes, we typically need to budget and save quite a bit of calories for these meals, but don't go in starving, because you will eat with your eyes, and your satiety cues will be lagging behind, and you can easily go out to dinner and have 2,000 calories just at that one
Mm-hmm.
sitting, plus all the stuff that you ate during the day. Easily, without even trying. So, what I typically recommend is, for example, an example of going in not hungry is if you chug like 1 to 2 scoops of protein, for example, like literally as you're driving over to the restaurant, you're way less likely to overeat because you're already kind of full. Or maybe you have like a big chicken salad or a chicken stir fry or something with like protein and lots of volume, but not a lot of calories. Those are perfect meals so that you're not arriving like, oh my gosh, I'm so starving. Just whatever. I'll just eat whatever here,
Yeah.
whatever's here.
Yeah, I think the main thing is like there's this tendency when we start to talk about budgeting of being like, I'm going to spend all my daily calories on this meal out and I'm going to completely indulge and have all three courses and all that, right? But it can backfire. It can backfire because sometimes, like, if you don't eat, first of all, if you don't eat all day, I don't know about you, I'd be miserable. Second of all, like, you probably still have to like function during the day. Maybe you're hitting a training session, maybe you're working that day, maybe you're, just taking the dog for a walk. You need to do something. But also, like, if you don't eat all day and then you have a massive meal like that, you're setting yourself up for so much stomach discomfort and digestive issues. So I think like one of the most mature things you can do when it comes to planning around meals out is actually not wait all day to eat, right? So there's, like you said, that idea of if you go in starving, you're going to eat with your eyes, but also it's like you need to be an adult here, right? You need to make sure that you're still eating throughout the day, even though you might adjust your food selection, you might adjust your portion sizes. Maybe it's actually an opportunity to think about, okay, I'm going to prioritize more protein and more fruit and veg earlier in the day,
Yes,
right?
that's what I typically say too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think people also, when they go out to eat, like, I don't want to always just eat veggies. I'm not there. I'm not at a restaurant to eat like raw carrots. So
Hmm.
like have those things, because if you know you're not going to have them in your meal, or like restaurant meals might typically be like lower fiber or things like that,
Hmm.
prioritize those things earlier, and it switches the mindset around eating out from one of like, I have to restrict all day to get here, to, hey, how do I make sure I'm getting more things during the day, more for less maybe, right? Like more nutritional value for fewer calories if you're budgeting, but then you feel extra prepared to tackle
Yep.
that meal out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Anything else that you want to talk about when it comes to like the planning component or like leading up to, or do we want to dive into
No,
like the meal?
I think that was pretty comprehensive. So now, yeah, we can definitely talk about when you're in the meal, and maybe some of this is like if you didn't plan ahead, or you just kind of set a certain amount of calories for that meal that you thought it was going to be, or left yourself a certain budget, but like you didn't plan macros or plan the exact meal. Maybe that's more relevant for like what to do during. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you have planned ahead, you've picked your menu item, things like that. Let's jump into when you're at the meal and when you're like during the meal, like what are you going to do? But one thing we actually didn't really dive too much into is we talked about how to plan your menu choices
Hmm.
and making the selection that's going to help fit your targets and also, be enjoyable. But did you want to talk about any other tips around like picking a menu option specifically before we talk about, okay, you're sitting down in the restaurant, what do you do?
Yeah. So I definitely think, yeah, we always want to choose something that ideally has protein in it. So leading with kind of protein as a good food option. I always recommend choosing things that are easier to estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Like people will go and be like, "Oh, coach, how do I track this pad thai?" It's like that is the hardest thing to track, especially like it's your first week tracking and you went
Mm-hmm.
and you chose pad. Like it's not going to happen, right? Because you don't know how much sauce, how many noodles, what the peanuts are like all these things, and that kind of noodle is like really calorie dense. So it's like let's avoid those kind of really mixed dishes with a lot of ingredients and a lot of calorie dense ingredients. That's going to be very hard to estimate. But for example, the poke bowl, I can see the separate ingredients: rice, tuna, vegetables, edamame, if
Mm-hmm.
that's considered a
Mm-hmm.
vegetable, avocado on the side, right? Like you can see the individual components. It's way easier to estimate things. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to choose things that are less mixed, less saucy, less oily, less calorie dense mixed ins, like those kind of things.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, I think. And it doesn't mean that you'll never eat pad thai again. It just means if you're in a fat loss phase, if you're trying to moderate your calorie intake, and also if you are just starting at
New,
developing
yeah.
the skill of estimating your meals, keeping things as, I'm going to make up a word here, eyeballable as
Mm-hmm.
possible. I visually identifiable, that's a more
Yeah,
sophisticated way of saying it. The
nice,
more visually identifiable your meal is, the easier it's going to be for you to feel confident tracking it and accounting.
perfect.
Okay. All right, moving on. Now we're at the restaurant. We took mom out. As we had discussed, that's our plan, right? Taking mom out. And now what do we do that while we're sitting there placing our order to maybe make it even easier for us to stay on track in a fat loss phase or otherwise?
Yeah, yeah, so let's use the idea of like I didn't plan it ahead and I didn't necessarily like know the exact macros. I just kind of left a bit of a budget, right? Like how do I go about ordering? The first things first is, as we said before, leading with protein. So I'm going to look for menu options that I think have a good amount of protein, like the chicken, fish, steak, like those kind of things on the menu. And then I'm also looking things that are less mixed, as I just said. So same kind of cues there. And then I am a big kind of advocate of also being okay asking the waiter or waitress or person that's serving you to to modify things a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you know there's, oh, you know, this I want to get this steak, for example, but has this blue cheese sauce on it. You can ask for sauce on the side. It's not going to offend them. They're not going to be like, everybody, this person just asked me for the sauce on the side. This fitness nut. Let's all make fun of him. Like no, nobody gives, right? So be okay asking, for modifications. Like they're not going to get offended. Like sauce on the side, dressings on the side. That way, if you want to have the sauce or dressing, you can choose how much
Mm-hmm.
you can put on, and easier for you to, again, eyeball, versus if it's already on, you have no
Mm-hmm.
idea how much is mixed in, right? So I think that's one of the big things.
That is the biggest thing, I think, because sauces are also the place where like those hidden calories really can add up, and it's really hard to eyeball the amount of sauce on a plate versus if it's in like one of those little dishes, like ramekin dishes or whatever, sauce dish, you can see it and be like, okay, I'm going to put about a teaspoon, right? Like I do that every time. I love ordering eggs Benedict because I won't make eggs Benny at home, but
Mm-hmm.
the hollandaise sauce is like
Yeah.
literally straight melted butter.
Yeah.
And so I will order that on the side and I might put a little knife dab on different bites, right? But that is one of the easiest things you can do. And like you said, no one's judging you.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Because let me paint a picture. You order the hypothetically the same meal. One is, it's steak, potatoes, and vegetables. The steak, with or without the blue cheese sauce that I mentioned on it, that's a significant difference. The potato, if you ask for a baked potato versus the baked potato with all the, butter and sauces and cheese on it, massive difference. Or whatever they put on it, sour cream or whatever. And then the vegetables, asking it for cooked, steamed without any butter or oil, compared to if they do cook it with butter or oil, that's the same meal on your plate. But there is probably a 600-calorie difference between the two meals I just described, but theoretically the same meal. So that's where it goes to showing those little modifications are so important.
And then you also get to choose, right? When you ask for things on the side, it's not making it all or nothing either. It's saying, like, I'm dictating. We said up front, one of the biggest challenges, like things not being in the portions that you would choose. Well, now guess what? You've just equipped yourself to at least control to a certain extent
Yeah.
aspects of the portion sizes. So if you're
Yeah.
like, man, I can't eat a baked potato without bacon, therefore I'm going to order the fries. Okay, well, why don't you just order the baked potato, ask for the bacon on the side,
Yeah.
and sprinkle some on top in your own
Yeah.
desired
Yeah.
proportion? It is up to you to kind of ask, and if you don't ask, you will not receive. And like you said,
100%.
same meal at the end of the day, right? Anything else on the practical strategies of like when you are sitting down at the restaurant, other things you can do to make
Yeah.
it easier?
I think one more thing that we kind of aligns with before and after, is like knowing your go-tos. So for example, like I know there's a few restaurants that we tend to eat at when we go out. So, and I know what option I'm going to choose, and I already maybe will create a certain standardized input that I'll use, so that it's not so much thinking every time. For example, the poke bowl. If we're going there often, because right beside mom's house, love to go there. Shout out, I can't even remember the name of
In a
the
bowl.
freaking, in a bowl. So
Yeah.
good. If I know, well, I'm always going to get one of these 2-3 orders, why don't I just create my own input based on my eye to estimate it? And then every single time I go, one touch of a button, I've entered it in,
Yeah.
budgeted
Yeah.
it, and there we go.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Same thing goes with like, yeah, if you have like a regular Friday night date night place or something like that, just like pick your go-tos, build your own repertoire. Amazing. I think we're going to move on from like the strategies of like actually doing it, because that was a lot. We talked about like all the planning. We talked about how you can adjust things when you're actually in the restaurant. But let's say now, okay, we're walking out of the restaurant, we're full, we're satisfied, we're feeling confident and on track. What can we do after? What do we need to be aware of after? Anything?
Nothing. No,
It's done.
I just kidding. But we
It's
also we
done.
also didn't talk about the AI though. That's the only thing I
Yeah, that's
just
what I was
realized.
going to say is like, if
Yeah.
you wanted to plug that one now, it's like,
Oh, okay, okay,
if you
okay.
took a,
Let's.
okay, so maybe we forgot to say that during, what you can do during is also take a picture of your food. And like now we live in a world where we all photograph. Like there's a joke around the phones eat first, right? Because so many people take pictures of their food when they go out. So it's not embarrassing. It's okay. Like take a photo of your food. And first of all, this allows you to actually reflect on the meal composition. Is what you planned for matching what you saw on your plate? And you're not doing that at the table either. You're not like
No,
taking
no,
away from
do
the
this
moment of being
later.
at the
Yeah.
table. You do it later, but take a photo so that you at least can say, hey, cool, does this match? I've done this so many times. I'll be like, does this match what I actually inputted into the app? Did I forget anything? Are there extra ingredients? So it's like a little bit of a gut check. And again, it might not matter. Okay, now all of a sudden, oh, I forgot this thing that was ended up being on the plate. I didn't anticipate it. I'm over 100 calories. It doesn't matter. The point is now you are building that skill and you are learning
Yes.
and practicing.
Exactly. So yeah, don't try to track it on the spot. Like just take the couple photos and then put your
Do it
phone away
after.
and do it later. Yeah.
So exactly. And also, so if you didn't do your exercise before as well, you can still do it after. You don't have to then write off the whole day, right? You take that photo, you log it after. It doesn't matter where you net out at that point, but at least you're staying committed to understanding your data and making, that informed choice, even if it's retroactive.
Exactly.
But the other thing you
Yeah.
can do with the photo, this is your trick. This is your trick.
Yeah. So if you don't have a coach, because sometimes with newer clients, they'll say, "Hey, if you're like a bit unsure, send it to me. I'll tell you what my estimate would be." But I created a presentation on this for our client group, and it's on using AI. So the best practices for this, because you can do it inaccurately or accurately. Obviously, it's not going to work if you have like a burrito and you just have like you take a picture of a burrito. Like it's not going to give
Yeah,
you
it's like in
freaking
the
accurate.
foil and you can't even see any of
Yeah,
the
like
food.
you don't know.
Yeah.
But let's say I did have that poke bowl. Okay, the way to do this is you take like maybe 1 to 3 separate photos from different angles, and then you write your best description as possible into chat. And you'll say, "Hey, I'm having this poke bowl with what I think is like around this much rice. There's these things on it. There's a little bit of this on it. Here are the other ingredients. Can you please give me your best estimate of the macronutrient values of this meal, please?" And then it will spit out sometimes a little bit so, but then you can cross-reference it with your brain to then maybe edit it a bit, but it will give you a ballpark. Sometimes it's pretty accurate actually
Mm-hmm.
if you prompt it and it's the correct type of meal. And then you can kind of like again cross-reference it with your nutritional knowledge and then use that as the input. It's not perfect, but I think for people that are newer to tracking, I mean, we live in 2025. I almost said 2026. We're almost in 2026. We live in 2025. We have tools at our disposal to make our fitness journey easier, and this is one of them.
Yep, 100%. And you know what? Even if it's not 100% accurate, if you're just starting out, it either might be, I hate to say it, more accurate than your guess. Like we are
Exactly. Yeah.
historically and like notoriously bad at estimating our own food. There's research out there to prove it. But also, it then actually gives you a little bit of a view into a potential thought process to use in the future, right? Sometimes ChatGPT, like they actually do it actually does a good job of being like, okay, well, this amount of rice, let's break this down, and it actually breaks
Yeah.
down the components. Or hey, you might not. Sometimes it says, hey, you might not have thought of like the fact that these potatoes are cooked in oil. Like sometimes it says that,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so it at least gives you like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, this is how I might break it down. So it is a useful resource. Like, why not use it? I'm saying this as a former and sometimes still current like chat GPT skeptic, but
Yeah.
this is a great use case. And you know what? Sometimes even as somebody who I've been like doing this for 10 years and I feel really confident estimating my food, sometimes I'll gut check it for fun, or honestly, sometimes
Hmm.
just have it estimate and then see if that aligns with my own estimate just to save
Exactly.
time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Save decisions, effort,
Mm-hmm.
thinking. Yeah.
100%. Okay. So there's one thing we want to leave you with as a little bit of like an after reminder, just to keep in mind following meals out. And then we're going to wrap up with that amazing mindset shift that we spoke about up front. And then we'll leave you for this week because this is a bit of a longer episode, but really these moments are so crucial to navigate. So we want to make sure that we give it the attention it deserves. And if you continue after this episode to still have questions on like how to navigate specific meals out, please drop your questions in the comments below or reach out to one of us on Instagram or our Truth Body Systems account on Instagram, and we're happy to help you. Okay, so after, one thing we cannot forget to keep in mind is meals out might change your scale weight the next day. So if you are somebody who checks their weight on a daily basis or weighs themselves in the morning after meal out and it goes up, don't panic. It did not ruin all of your progress. It does not even mean that you didn't have a calorie deficit that day. There's a few things it might mean. Do you want to unpack some of them or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah. No, you go for it.
Okay, this is a hot topic, scale weight. So, scale weight is going to fluctuate anyways, right? Daily. But when we have a meal out, we sometimes then engage with certain variables that are going to maybe inflate scale weight the next day. The first is higher sodium meals. Restaurants often will cook with more salt than you would at home.
Yes.
So that will lead to more water retention. We did a whole episode breaking down scale weight
Oh,
fluctuation,
yeah.
so I'm going to link that here. So I'm not going to go into the why, but I just want to outline the variables
Mm-hmm.
related to restaurant meals. So more sodium, sometimes more food bulk. Let's say you then ate more for dinner that night because you budgeted your calories, you reserved. Now you have more food actually in your system from that meal than you maybe
Mm-hmm.
did on other days. That will also carry physical weight in your body.
And or you ate later than you maybe would
Or
have had dinner. Yeah.
great point. Yeah, or you ate later. So I think those are probably the two main ones that
Yeah.
come to mind
Those
for
are yeah
me
for sure.
that you need to really be aware of as like don't panic. It doesn't mean that dining out makes you gain weight. It just means that There are factors associated with dining out. Even if you are still able to adhere to your calorie deficit, that might increase scale weight the next day. Just know that when you collect that data point, choose if you want to include that data point in your trend line or not. Consider it an outlier, toss it out, move on, keep moving forward. Just go back to your sustainable calorie deficit the next day and keep going.
Perfect.
All right. We're going to finally get to that mindset shift. Do you want to share like your first mindset about like how you approach meals out and what we should really be there for, and before we dive into the big shift?
Yeah, so I think we've said this in one of our other episodes, but we can keep saying it because it's a good one. It's just really focusing on like the people, the conversations, and the experience,
Mm-hmm.
not just the eating and drinking. And part of the experience is potentially the eating and drinking, but it doesn't mean we need to make that like the only focus, right? Like I could easily gone to these shareable meals and be like, oh my gosh, I just need to eat as much as possible. This is my time to do it. Or I could be like, hey, I'm here to enjoy these meals and I'm going to enjoy the food, but I don't need to overindulge because at the end of the day, I'm here to celebrate the event and have good discussions and good conversations with the people that are there with me. And that's really what you're going to remember. And yeah, the food was awesome, but I think what's helped me around this cut, because it's been a pretty assertive cut with these kind of dining out kind of meals in them. But
Mm-hmm.
what's been helping me is I try, as I said before, I'll say it again, is like I try not to glorify that meal. So when I've been going out, I'm not making it such a big deal that I'm going out to eat or freaking out about it or stressing about it,
Mm-hmm.
or the opposite of like I need to get my money's worth or blah blah blah. I'm going in with the mindset of like I'm not going to glorify this. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to do all these planning things that we've been talking about, and then I'm just going to move on,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
I think there's an interesting distinction there too between like enjoying it and glorifying it. Just because you choose not to glorify it doesn't mean you don't enjoy or appreciate the novelty of
Oh
the
yeah, I had a
food
great time.
or the high quality of the food. Like you can still appreciate those things, but you're just not putting it on a pedestal to the point where you're like, every decision I make is about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you said like putting the event at the forefront. Like the two instances you shared that you were experiencing during this cut was like, okay, a meal with Tara's family there, or three instances, a meal with Tara's family, there was one birthday celebration, then your own birthday celebration, right? It's like, okay, well, we're there to celebrate those moments with like friends
Mm-hmm.
and family. So
Yeah, cool.
I think if you are left wondering like, okay, well, how do I enjoy that event, or when do I pick my moments where I might want to indulge, this is the thing we said we were going to talk about, right? There's one important distinction that when I first heard it really resonated with me, and I want to bring it here today, is there is a difference between a social occasion and a special occasion. So a social occasion is like, I'm getting together with friends. The purpose is really to catch up. 2 weeks later, you are not going to remember what you ate, right? Like that's just the fact of it. Like you're not there. A social occasion, you're not there for the food. The food is like the catalyst, or like going out to eat together is just the catalyst for getting together. And I think it's really important we acknowledge that, because it helps you stop thinking about it's about the food and start thinking about it's about the people.
Yes.
There are, however, special occasions, and special occasions might actually put the food more at the forefront. And those might be the moments where you're not thinking about calories, right? You're not thinking about what's the macronutrient breakdown of this meal, because that genuinely is a once in a lifetime, or like few times, select handful of times in a lifetime moment. I'm thinking about like when Justin and I celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a special occasion. And we went to this absolutely phenomenal restaurant, like one of the best in Canada. It was like a 7-course meal. I barely drink, but we even did the wine pairing. Like, and that was a moment I would never trade off that moment. I would never have done it differently. I was so present, enjoyed it, and there's so many memories. Like I do remember
Mm-hmm.
specifically
Yeah,
the
the food.
dishes
Yeah.
that we had, right? And the food. And that's a really special moment. So when we're talking about dining out and going through this planning effort and being diligent, we are talking about when you're in a fat loss phase. And when, in a fat loss phase, we can't deny that calories matter. But in the bigger picture, if you're in a fat loss phase or pursuing other fitness goals, whatever it is, delineating between special occasions and social occasions can help you figure out, okay, when do I want to be more intentional and dialed in? It's just a social occasion versus, you know what, this moment matters to me and I'm going to just focus on like the full experience, whatever that
Yeah.
may look like.
That's a really, really, really good point. Special occasions versus social occasions. I think to piggyback on that is just reminding yourself that we are what we do for the majority of the time. And special occasions are not every day, right? So even if Courtney was like, for example, let's say Courtney was like 2,000 calories over her calorie budget that day for her fat loss macros if she was in a fat loss phase. doesn't really matter if you do that once a year or every 6 months, right? If you're doing that every week or every 3 days, okay, it's going
Mm-hmm.
to start to add up. But
Mm-hmm.
what I typically find is the people who should be more analytical about the way they go about eating out tend to not care about as much. And then the people that are like really worried about messing up and being, oh, I was 100 calories over, like they're the people that don't actually need to stress
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's so true.
Yeah. So,
It's so true. The irony. Yeah.
yeah, it's funny,
Well,
right?
I think we had a really great breakdown of a variety of things that affect, dining out when you're in a fat loss phase, or just, being intentional about your fitness goals. The short version is, can you eat out and still lose fat? Absolutely, you can. 100% you can. You just need to make sure that you're still adhering to a calorie deficit. And hopefully, by understanding why it's more challenging when you dine out and also pursuing some of these practical strategies that we talked about, can actually help you make informed decisions that can guide you to sustaining your calorie deficit when you're dining out. And if you listen to this, but you are not in a fat loss phase, a lot of the same rules apply. Just, you might have more, let's say, margin of error might
Grace.
be a little
Yeah.
wider, or more
Yeah. Okay.
grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, grace is a better way of putting it. You might have more grace. Your calorie targets overall might be higher, so the budgeting factor becomes easier. But a lot of the same practical strategies apply anyways if you are trying to be diligent and build your nutrition awareness and be consistent with your daily intake.
Love it.
That was a long one, Parris. How are we feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Feeling actually ready to go have my next meal, I think.
Are you dining out or are you making it at home?
No,
Making it
it's a
at home.
very boring at home meal. I won't even
Yeah.
say what it is.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking about poke bowls now and steak, so
I wish.
those
Yeah.
will have to be on our horizon for the near future. Mom, we owe you a poke bowl now, I think, after this episode. We talked about it so much. All right, everyone. Without further ado, we will leave you for this week and be back in your feeds with another episode of Truth Talks next Monday. In the meantime, have a great week ahead. Bye for now.
Take care.